The chaotic situation is everywhere. It is beyond the capacity of Israel. We shouldn't give or get a hand or a leg in a war which has nothing to do with us. Nothing to do with Israel. So I'll stop here, but it is becoming very complicated. I hope that there would be kind of an agreement. I don't see that in the offing. And just one last note. See the hypocrisy of the world. France. As you know, France have solved out its problems, you know. They decided to come to the Middle East and solve out the problems. So you are more than welcome. But you know what they said when they tried to point to the problem? They used the 20th century lexicon. Palestinian-Israeli conflict. So, I'll tell you what is that. This is kind of a hypocrisy that cannot even say we don't know what to do with one time Syria, with one time Iraq. This is a mess. We don't know how to solve it out. So in order to leave behind the impression that we are doing something, let's stick to the notion, to the old notion of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. So France is not getting rid of its own problem at home, but they have ambitions about the Middle East. They are more than welcomed. But once they are talking about a Palestinian-Israeli thing as the A and C, well, this is sort of a diversion.
It seems that Russia's efforts to participate actively in the region has succeeded, and also that the United States involvement is decreasing. We know too that relations between Israel and Russia are in good shape. From the point of view of Israel's interests, is that a good bet? Or should Israel try to go back to the status quo ante that prevailed before the tensions and frictions between President Obama and Prime Minister Netanyahu?
It's another very good question. Listen, what happened in the United States is not only Obama. It is a real break with tradition and construction. I don't think that the United States is going, even with Trump or Clinton, to get back to status quo ante. What Israel is doing, and you can think of that. Egypt was disappointed to see that America left Mubarak behind. Saudi Arabia was so disappointed. So just think of that. Many players in the Middle East are pretty disappointed of the the fact that they were abandoned, so to speak, by the patron. In the Middle East, we are not used in the last 200 years to act without a superpower. You know, in the 20th century, it was the Cold War, USSR versus US. Thereafter, it was the, let us say, uniqueness of the United States, or the dominance of the United States. Now the United States is pulling out. Russia, as we said, Putin, or Putin. So, what Israel is doing is just to broaden up the base of our contacts. Yes, we do talk to Moscow. We haven't been talking to Moscow that frequent before, in that frequency, I mean. So what do we talk about with Moscow? Just small, narrow-minded interest, as everybody's doing. I'll make the story very, very simple for you. We can do nothing in the Middle East. It's beyond our capacity. So if Moscow would like to use airplanes and chemical weaponry to slaughter rebels in Syria, well, we can do nothing about it. The world should say something, not we. We can do nothing about it. But we left Moscow with an understanding that we are going actually to do the fence sitting. We are not going to intervene. It's not our business. But if we would find convoys delivering sophisticated weaponry from Damascus to Beirut to Hezbollah, we're going to hit them. And this is what we're doing. Second, if the Golan Heights, the Syrian side, is going to be controlled by Iran and company, which means Hezbollah, Israel is not going to let it go. So you are not dealing with constructions in this Middle East. You are coming up with preemptive acts. How to prevent the other make kind of a nightmare or make or threat my security. This is something that we have to bear in mind. Everybody thinks that way. And this is why everybody for itself. We don't have camps. We don't have blocks. We have a bunch of bits and pieces moving all the way around, and everybody is recalculating its strategy day by day. This is very tough. But at the same time, you have a lot of possibilities if you are that sophisticated. This is what we are trying to make Israel. Not a Western state in that sense, very Middle Eastern. Speak the language of the Middle East. Make sure that we are understandable in the other side, for better, for worse. Because we are not to be taken as the dummy of the neighborhood. No. And I am afraid saying that. Everybody else is thinking that way. This is why the Middle East is becoming so combustible. If my interests are being damaged, and I should retaliate directly, it is because I don't want the other have the impression that I'm weak. This is the reason for the combustibility in the Middle East.
So for a long time, Israel has not taken seriously into account the Arab Peace Initiative of 2002. Was that initiative really serious, and does Israel has lost a good opportunity of making peace with big Arab actors? Or was that initiative problematic and impossible to take into account due to domestic Israeli political discrepancies about the costs and trade-offs involved?
Great. First of all, we do not talk about peace in Israel and in the Middle East. This is too broad a notion. What is peace? Peace is something to be built up on true friendship, love, trust, and intimacy. Well, this is not to be found in the Middle East. Not only in Israel, this is not to be found in the Middle East. So let's talk about agreement, not about peace. So Israel should promote every agreement that would increase its security. This is how we measure agreements. We cannot buy promises. We cannot stick to the notions of the world of neoliberalism. What we have to make sure is that our security is guaranteed. So who can guarantee us? What we have to do is to really think of these concerts of Arab states. This peace plan was orchestrated by Saudi Arabia in 2002. It was not accidentally orchestrated after the 9/11 atrocities. 15 of the 19 saboteurs were Saudi citizens. So the Saudis were of the opinion they should come up with something big in order to erase the impression that they are patrons of terrorism. They would like to be seen as patrons of peace. Now, this program, or this plan, has many, many difficulties. For one, it deals with the right of return of Palestinians to Israel. Now, if somebody thinks of that, there is no way we can open up a dialogue here. Israel cannot absorb 2.5 million Palestinians. Israel is so tiny, with its 8 million people. What Israel should do is to try to make this not valid, ask Arab states to finance the citizenship of those one-time refugees, because they are in Arab states. What Arab states do not want is to grant citizenship to those Palestinians. So every Palestinian would tell you that they were taken captive by Arab states. The Arab states should have sold it out before. But now there is a new constellation. I agree that Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan would like to have sort of an agreement with the Palestinians and Israel in order to shift their effort to ISIS and Iran. And by the way, ISIS is the nemesis of Iran and vice versa. So don't think about ISIS and Iran as the same camp. They are fiercest rivals, Sunnah and Shia. So I would say that, to make a long story short, really, I would try actually to point to the problematic issue here. This is a platform. Let me just tell you, it has been dealing with already. The Saudis would like to have something here, but they are not going to run the whole show. They would support it if there would be a quorum of Arab states plus Israel to do that. We are talking about the Sunni Arab states, not Iran, of course, not ISIS, of course. Those states are being smashed by ISIS ambitions and Iran's ambitions. And those states do think that this is high time for the reasonable states to come together and do together kind of a block or a way by which to block the radicals. Yes, it has a potential. But again, we do not talk about the regional peace. We talk about an ad hoc alliance, a tactical alliance that will ease tension and make everybody be benefited from that.
What is the balance that you can make of the treaty between the G5+1 and Iran 1 year after it was signed? Has Iran kept its promises fully, or are there doubts or complaints about them?
Well, listen, I think that this 5+1 treaty with Iran is kind of a way by which to take a problem and to postpone its problematic dimensions to 10 to 15 years later on. Well, let's say what we got here. Okay, I would ask you and you should just tell me. Because I've been to many TV studios in the States, in Israel. When I asked, why does Iran still develop ballistic missiles, I was responded with, this is not an article of the agreement, so don't speak about that. So the agreement, ladies and gentlemen, allows Iran to further develop its ballistic abilities. Second, I was asked, why does Iran support terrorism in Syria, in Lebanon, in Latin America, as we know that, with Hezbollah, and the whole world says nothing? Why? Don't speak about that. It's not an article in the agreement. So this is an agreement. that speaks about a specific item, and it goes against the logic that Obama's administration taught us. What they taught us? That Iran could become friendlier after the agreement. Where Iran is kind of a huge market these days of Citroën, Renault, Peugeot, with everything, because after the sanctions there is kind of a shopping spree of Europeans in the Iranian market. They taught us that Iran is an enemy of ISIS, and once I am going to have an agreement with Iran, Iran would support me against ISIS. You know, I mean, an Egyptian friend of mine said to me when I said that, Bukra fil mishmish. I don't know if you know what is that. Tell this Baba Mises to my grandmother. You know, I mean, the Iranians are very shrewd, very cunning. Listen, think of a situation where Iran is a state of 3 millennia. They are the most, I think, the best diplomats you can find all over the place. 3,000-year experience. Think of that. You know, Obama sent a token of gratitude to Iran in the Nowruz, the beginning of the year. It was kind of saying that, dear leader, this is the supreme leader of Iran, Ali Khamenei, I respect your nation. The United States has been always tended to use diplomatic skills in order to solve our problems. You know, I want to go further, but you know, the answer was, have you talked about your states, which exist 250 years, by using the word always? Always? United States has been always? What is always? You are just a newcomer in this world. We are the cradle of civilization. In Persian you have this two words which go Tamaddon Bozorg. Tamaddon Bozorg in Persian, it is high civilization. Think of that. Iranians and Persians do think of themselves as superior to the others, especially when it comes to Arabs and Turks. They would like to have nukes, not to destroy Israel, but to show to themselves that they are able. And if somebody is going to block them, it has to do with their history. Here comes again the West, blocking our ability, make us inferior in comparison to the West. So it is being taken in a different language. And this is why I say culture should be actually included. You can't do geopolitics only by theories of political science. If you are not familiar with the mindset of the other, it would be very difficult for you to just run the deal or the show. And this is something that we are trying actually to make sure everybody knows. Many Iranians would like to have a change. Many young Iranians. We know that, you know why? We talk to them. How do we talk to them? Facebook, Twitter, every day, every hour. We know that there are many Iranians that have nothing to do with Israel. They even don't hate Israel. But Iran is an Islamic republic. And you have up there a bunch of ayatollahs who are holding the power, both when it comes to the economic and the political levels. You don't have parties there. I am being asked time and again, why can't we have an Iranian revolution like the Arab Spring? Why don't we have a restoration of the Shah? Where is the supporters of the Shah? I said, they are in Los Angeles. They are in New York. They are not in Iran. So if you come to think of that, Iran is an Islamic republic. You don't have parties or opposition. Don't forget, in Tahrir Square in Cairo, with the breakout of the Arab Spring, opposition parties were on board with the people. So they carried the people and they pushed the opposition and gave it momentum. In Iran, you don't have opposition. It is just one party, one state, Islamic government, and what you have is ayatollahs. Until there is a change in the levels of power, there is no chance for revolution in Iran. So think of that, and Iran is a tough player. Iran would like to become hegemonic in the Middle East. Don't ask Israel. Don't ask Israel. Ask the Saudis. I have never been that knowledgeable about that until I visited in Doha and in some parts of the Arabian Peninsula. I met Arabs and I was shocked and bewildered while asking them about Iran, and they said they are not to be trusted. Period. They are not going to just explain logically what happened here and there. They are not to be trusted. If you were that foolish to concoct a deal, it means that I cannot counter you anymore. Period. And you can come up with a lot of explanations. The Saudis won't buy that. And I heard in my very ear the notion of الشيعة أنجس من اليهود, which means that, yes, we have problems with the Jews, but the Shia are much worse than the Jews. So you feel as if you are in the middle. It's not that problematic anymore. So this is what I said, that the change is so dramatic, and we have to take it also with regard to Iran, because Iran's hegemonic ambition are a source of concern not only for Israel, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Egypt, everybody. So this is the let us say resolved, or let us say the problematic and chaotic situation of the Middle East in just one word.
Thank you. So this is our final question before we let the audience ask questions for you. Israel is surrounded by several countries that are territorially contiguous, have weak states, face non-state militant actors with transnational links, and experience large refugee flows. To what extent could conflicts in countries such as Syria or Iraq have a contagious effect on Israel? What are the biggest challenges and opportunities that Israel faces in this new Middle East?
Okay. Well, in my last chapter of the book, I dealt with Israel in the Middle East. So, it is no secret that our geopolitical posture is being changed, and I talked about that. But there is a problem for Israel. Israel has to change its mode of thinking about itself. We have some problems from within. We have tribes in Israel. People do talk about Ashkenazi, Sefaradí, secular religious, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem. It seems that we are starting quarreling among ourselves when the situation, geopolitically speaking, is being a little bit relaxed. When we have a war on our head, we are united. We are bold, courageous, and we are great. Now our job is to leave behind for our next generation an Israel that would become sort of a mix, which is very, very unique, not to be found elsewhere. I do afraid when I'm listening to my students, some of them would like to have high tech. And you know, we are a startup nation. You know that. And by the way, actually, I was pretty amazed to hear from the financier correspondent today morning in my interview, that Israel is only second to the United States in investing in Mexico. Huge. Kind of a thing that would make us think that we are having contacts with many states in Latin America, in Africa. We have to go beyond the Middle East. Well, I will tell you, you know, we have problems in two main things. First of all, tactically, you have to deal not with states, but with, let us say, guerrilla or terrorist groups or anti-state actors. Take, for example, Hamas. You know, we are much stronger than Hamas. You know, we could have won them out in a minute from Gaza. But we can't do that. Why? We are a democracy. We have to stick to the political correctness. So how are you going to fight a movement which human life means nothing for them? Their leaders are hiding during the war in bunkers. And they are shooting at you from schools, hospitals, hoping that you would retaliate and hit children, ill people, or something like that, and to change the opinion of the international public opinion, the mind of the international public opinion. I would tell you, my job in Israel is, I think, becoming very, very important. Not because I talk to policymakers, explaining them about that there is no Syria anymore, no Iraq, you should just read the map differently. The thing is how to make sure that our grandsons and granddaughters in would-be Israel would know how to deal with future Israel. You know, if you are going to become a high-tech man and you think that you are a man of the world, and in the 21st century, if there is a problem in Israel, you can jump easily to the other side of the world. Well, this is a story of the Jewish history, but no more. What was proved now is that there is no chance for people to survive unless they have a state. And as far as I know, the only state the Jewish people have is Israel. Now we have to preserve Israel. We have to make sure that our next generations know what Israel means. It should not be taken for granted. But at the same time, we have to have Jewish Israel and a democratic Israel. So how are we going to build up this notion of Jewish and democratic Israel? This is our job. And it is very difficult. Why? Because it is a world which sells lies to its human beings. You have to stick to your origin. You have to. This is why we have to make sure that we are going to have our next generations running a nation, a startup nation in Israel, but at the same time, These people must be, or must understand, what Judaism is. Respect Judaism. You don't have to be ultra-Orthodox. You don't have to pray. I mean, I am a secular person. I have nothing to do with religion in that sense. But Israel has to preserve its Jewish character. And at the same time to respect the otherness of the others. We have Palestinians. We have Druze. We have Circassians. We have Haredis. We have people of Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. We have to build up an ethos that would help us out dealing with that. Think with me for a minute. Even in 200 years from now, when we are not here, I hope that I'm not offending somebody. We're going to have, even if we have a secured Jewish and democratic Israel, what we can do and know about this Israel, it would be small, demographically speaking. It would be small, territorially speaking. So even in the best case scenario, we are few and far between. So we have to stick together. We have to respect the others. And we have to make sure that our next generations have kind of an idea of what Israel means. This is kind of a must in the 21st century. We can't have democratic Israel without Israel being Jewish, because we are going to lose our identity. We can't afford that. We can't have Jewish Israel without democracy, because this is not the Israel we would like to have. We don't want to have a halacha state. How are we going to build that? Education, acculturation, and a long process that we have to invest in. And this is something which is very, very difficult to get, but we are there to start dealing with that.